Right, hi there all. We're here on the last day of Formnext 2021. Here at the booth of AM Flow, and I have with me Anthony Graves of HP. So it's a pleasure to have you here, Anthony.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for making the time to be here. So just looking back, these have been 5 days. We've just got together again during a COVID period. A lot has been happening. Give you a flavor of what your impressions are of the fair so far?
Well, it's good to be back. And what's super interesting to me is that I think that it's been busier this year than 2 years ago, the last Formnext.
Right.
I know the lines have been longer everywhere.
Yeah.
The booths, the activity within the booths has been, I think, stronger than it was 2 years ago, which is interesting. And I don't think it's just because people were tied up, because it wasn't incredibly convenient for people to get out to Formnext because of some of the restrictions in different countries.
Yep.
So I think it is that the industry, because of COVID, has determined that additive can play a significant role in overcoming some of the challenges that were exposed because of COVID in the supply chain, for example. So I think it's people are starting to get really serious about finding these problems because everyone has to operate more efficiently. Automation obviously is what you guys do, and it's a key factor in how people are going to scale moving forward because of labor around the world, particularly in the United States. It's becoming a huge problem just to find people that are willing to work, let alone qualified workers. So to me, I think it's been an incredible event, and it's really, I think, set us up well for 2022.
All right, that's interesting, because you spoke about a number of people around here. Did you also have a feeling that the type of people that are actually visiting are much more informed about, I need to address things? It's not just about making stuff, it's about preparing for that future. Is that a flavor that you've also picked up?
I think so in this context. I think people are more aware of what they don't know and need help with.
All right.
So this industry has always attracted very bright people, innovative people.
Yeah.
The problem is there's been very little traction in growing this industry, and I think it's because there's been so much time and effort spent on trying to consider all the options that people haven't made decisions.
Yeah.
That the industry, and when I say the industry, I'm talking about big companies, the big industrials, the automotives, the aerospace, consumer, energy. They don't have the luxury of too much experimentation. A little experimentation is good, too much experimentation is bad. And when they're public companies, the market isn't going to give them too much flexibility to waste money.
No.
So now I think people have identified, you know what, these are areas we need to focus on, and let's find out who we can partner with.
All right, 'cause that's a good one, that on partnerships, because we're in front of our own board here with loads of brands behind us and logos, and talking about addressing these challenges for the future. Do you think that, in our perspective, we've been investing a lot in silos, in improving printers, in developing post-processing to enhance the quality of the output, and developing software. So now's sort of the time that we're actually now as an industry, need to cooperate and to deliver that demand that you're talking from the consumer brands and the demand that's out there in the market.
Sure. So you're 100% right. One of the things that's held, I believe, the industry back for the last 20 years has been the lack of maturity in the technology. Like you say, the printers, the materials, the material science that went into development of new materials, the post-processing, and the materials required for post-processing, and all of that stuff. Now, I will say it could have been accelerated, but additive manufacturing, whether anybody wants to admit it or not, has always felt like they don't really realize they're really manufacturers. You're additive manufacturers, but it's CNC machining, injection molding, fabrication, and additive has sort of felt special because of the unique capabilities. Exactly. Not only different, but special.
All right.
Now, the people that are getting into the industry are saying, wait a second, now that the technologies are maturing, those bigger companies I referenced earlier, beyond just startups, are saying, okay, we need to seriously look at additive, and now additive is being pulled into the world of certifications, validations, process controls, all of the things that they didn't have to worry about when they were little.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think automation is now going to be discussed, and we could talk about this.
Yeah, it's one of those subjects that's been buzzing around.
Right. OPCUA, there's a consortium around OPCUA trying to get to the bottom of connectivity, and they're making a lot of inroads, and HP is part of that consortium, and a lot of other companies are. And so connectivity is certainly critical right now, but the other thing is, how do we commercialize additive? Going from prototyping to production volumes, not just in an effort to try to replace CNC or injection molding, which is
that's
not going to happen for a long time. No, it's not. It's not. It's but how do you scale up additive intelligently? So
yeah, because coming back to automation, you know our story. We are trying to automate the whole workflow behind printing.
Right.
There's a lot of manual labor. Taking out the people actually help reduce the cost per part. Is that one of those components that will contribute to more applications being considered and having a viable business case in the first place?
So one of the interesting things, and one of the unique positions that I'm in, is working for a company that understands how to make parts.
Yeah.
Now they might happen to be parts that look like this, or brochures, or books, or fine art, packaging. HP is an expert in printing parts.
Yeah.
And so all of the experience that HP has in that world, including automation, because it's been highly automated for decades.
Exactly.
And so being able to leverage that experience and see how it can apply to help scale the 3D world is a unique position that HP's in, as far as being able to offer perspective and help drive other OEMs to sort of follow, HP's lead. HP's only been in the business for 5 years. However, in the 3D world, there's been OEMs here a lot longer. Obviously, some of the other big names everyone recognizes. But when HP they set out to develop a technology that revolved around production. So everything HP's been learning is, how do we connect the HP systems? And then certainly it applies to the broader industry, because most companies, it's just like if you go into a machine shop or you go into a large manufacturer, they're going to have, if they have CNC machines, they're going to have Haas's, and they're going to have Akumas and DMG, Morisikis, and they're going to have a whole host of machine tools, machining centers. The same thing is true for additive, and you have to be able to connect everything together. So,
all right. Now, just taking it a step further, we're going to look sort of 5 years out. We can talk about challenges. What would you hope to see that we have achieved in 5 years' time as an industry? How would that look like?
Well, there are a whole bunch of things, but one of them is, I'll come back to a pet peeve of mine that has to be addressed. But first, let's talk about the big stuff. Not about me, but let's talk about the industry.
All right.
And that is, I've had a lot of conversations with partners here at the show, talking about how they can help customers, the industry, the people that are buying all of this equipment. How can we make them successful? How can they help? HP is a big company, and it has a big megaphone. But in 3D, in the manufacturing world, like I said, it's still considered a small company.
It is a small, but it's also a small industry.
It is a small industry with huge opportunity and potential. So we've been talking with some of our partners and other OEMs about how we can promote this learning and reduce the learning curve for people to be able to scale up their business. Because I can tell you, there is no company within this entire expo selling enough printers, selling enough post-processing equipment, and these companies have to scale in order for this industry to remain healthy. We can't afford to lose any of these companies because the industry isn't scaling fast enough. We might lose some incredible technology that would have enabled, an explosion in growth of additive. So for me, it is the companies that have been around the longest, even long before additive, sort of stepping up and taking a leadership role in educating people about things like automation. And we've had this conversation, and what you guys are doing, and I call you out specifically because We have a mutual customer
Yep.
who is amazing. We'll tell you who it is if it's okay.
That's fine.
It's Zigzag in Belgium. Awesome company. And they're a service bureau. They are a prototype for the future. I think you would agree.
Absolutely.
And so what they're doing is they're saying in order for us to scale, they need software solutions and they need a whole host of technologies, but they need the glue that's going to tie it together, which is automation, it's material handling, it's conveyors, it's vision systems for inspection. And I'll tell you why this is important. And I didn't bring my prop with me, but I have this phone case.
Yeah.
Because where HP is trying to play a significant role in additive is around personalization, customization, and on demand, where additive has huge strengths over some of the other technologies that we mentioned earlier, CNC, fabrication, et cetera. So when you want to create something unique, you have to be able to do it quickly and economically. You can do that with additive. Now, what's interesting is that, and I tell a story of how if a company's going to start up and they're going to sell, maybe if you're a small company, you're selling like 1,000 custom phone cases with different textures and colors and your coatings and names on it, slogans. If you sell 1,000 a week, you might be ecstatic, right? But if you're a big brand, 1,000, you don't get out of bed
It's
before.
peanuts.
Yeah, it's nothing.
It's not a business.
Exactly, it's not a business. And even if a small company can make $5 million a year, are you kidding? So, and honestly, in HP, when my team is digital manufacturing software team, part of a group called Personalization and 3D, P3D, and our mandate was very clear to us. It's like, look, don't come out here and enable all these, little $1 million a year businesses, okay? We need you to focus on enabling these scale businesses, bringing the big brands in. So, for example, automotives, it's a project that Zigzag has worked on, in addition to orthotics and prosthetics and all sorts of really cool projects. But automotives is big. Being able to customize interior panels for car doors with texturing. Nothing, there's no rocket science here. Cerakote coatings, beautiful. It looks just like leather, and customers can customize their car. You can't do that for those big brands if you can't do it at scale. They're like, okay, great, you showed us you could do 1,000, now make 100,000.
Scale also means you have to do it cost effectively, time effectively, lead times, quality, consistency.
One of the points I was going to make about the 2D was this. I learned something, and I'm learning stuff every day. I'm still learning, and I went to in the 2D world. These service bureaus are called PSPs, print service providers. So I go out to a PSP and they said, Anthony, every time a human has to touch a business card, the cost went up.
Any product,
Any product, whether it's raw material, whether it's finished goods, if they have to fold a box, it costs money, as opposed to an automatic box creation machine, which they make tons of in Italy, by the way. I didn't even know that, but yes. So, so the key is that, and it's not about eliminating labor for the sake of eliminating labor. It's honestly making these industries viable economically through automation. And again, this is nothing new. People sitting outside in automotive and aerospace are like, we've been having to do this for, think back to when companies had to scale up during the war, for the war effort.
Exactly.
You had pallet systems being created and conveyor systems and all this because they didn't have enough people to produce things fast enough. They had to rely on automation. And so we're sort of coming back full circle, and now additive is saying, okay, what's out there? And what's interesting is the tools that you use to automate traditional manufacturing don't necessarily apply. Square pegs, round holes. So what you guys are doing, which is very interesting, and I called it out in my presentation when we were talking about this project with Twicket and Zigzag and both of our companies, and that was the ability to use vision systems that help deal with the fact that instead of creating 1,000 of the same part, we have 1,000 different parts on a conveyor. And how do you ramp those off to various post-processing steps? And this is maybe an important bit of information. People don't necessarily, okay, why is this important? Let me explain why this is important if you'll indulge me for a second.
Take your time.
In the world of traditional manufacturing, let's say that we'll just pick two companies randomly, Airbus and Boeing. if you're a supplier and you supply to both Airbus and Boeing, and I don't know if people do that, but let's just say they do.
A perfect world.
In a perfect world, maybe it's BMW and VW. Okay. Now, I defy anyone to walk onto a manufacturing shop floor and walk up to a CNC and open the doors and see a part for Airbus and Boeing or BMW and VW on that same bed. Not happening. People will disappear from the earth.
Yes.
If they were inspected by any of their customers. Absolutely. That's not happening. Yeah. There's some practical reasons, but there's traditional reasons too. But there's practical reasons you don't do that. And you don't need to do it because the way that parts are priced and the way cost is derived within those markets is very well known. And there's no advantage to putting a different part for Boeing and a different one for Airbus on the same machine. They're different parts, they're different processes. But in additive, particularly so with HP MJF, multi-jet fusion, powder bed applications in both polymers and metals, you can't produce parts cost effectively if you don't combine orders.
Exactly.
So let me tell you, you're probably going to see parts for Boeing and Airbus and VW and BMW in the same build because the suppliers cannot produce them economically otherwise.
Exactly.
So now we have different parts for different companies, for different products, all within a build. When those products are finally cleaned and ready to be post-processed, they have to be routed. They have to be inspected, identified. They have to then be routed. So you need a system that can connect all of the post-processing
separating
devices.
It into different buckets or whatever is necessary.
Now here's and this is a plug for you and other people that do what you guys do or want to do what you do, and this is this. People say, well, why doesn't HP just do that? Or why doesn't Siemens do that? Or EOS or Stratasys or 3D Systems? I won't leave anybody out. There's tons of Mark Forged. Why don't they do this? Well, the reality is they're not in the business of material handling systems. They might do vision systems. They might do various components within the chain. But it requires a company like yours that understands how to connect all this together. For why? For orchestration. Yep. MES systems are designed to orchestrate workflows. They should. But oftentimes, if you want an analogy in the CNC world, cell control systems, cellular control systems, where companies like yours would come in and you look at an application, maybe it's an aerospace application, and you're going to go from a mill to a lathe to some finishing step, yep. And you're going to have a robot, from GE Fanuc or from Fanuc or KUKA or ABB or whatever. Grab the part, move it into the next machine, pull it out, move it over here, move it around, put it on a conveyor, exactly. Pick and place.
Connecting all the dots, make it fully digital end to end, which is already out there, but not in our environment. And one of the key things is we can print anything. Exactly. And the industry the industry that's already there have difficulty with dealing with that infinity of geometry. As you said, you're going to mix parts, and that mixing is already causing problems.
That's what you need.
But that's what makes us so special as well.
It is, because the normal conveyor systems, you will see, if for those of you familiar with Lucille Ball, I Love Lucy, the chocolate factory.
Quite a while back.
Okay, they're all the same chocolates. Yeah. Chocolates, the same ones. That's what the industry's done for years. The same chocolates, the same parts going down a conveyor. Yeah. But when every single one of those is different, what are you going to do? I mean, you have to have systems that are intelligent enough. First of all, you have to have people that understand the uniqueness. Your background is you were one of the pioneers, the company you work for, one of the pioneers in being able to deal with mass volumes of high mix. Every single part was different, thousands and tens of thousands of different parts. Which never happened outside of additive. It was additive essentially allowed that industry to become real. And so when I talk to people, particularly from the old school brands, and they ask, well, why is this important? This is why it's important. This is not marketing buzz. As a matter of fact, I don't think enough education is happening. Period.
Exactly. And there's also some misunderstandings about labels and what is automation, what does it mean, where do you apply it, etc., etc. So, Anthony, very grateful for all your insights and for this brief chat here at the Formnext 2021. I'm looking forward to seeing you again in 2022. Hopefully that will take place. It's a bit unpredictable. Yeah, exactly. It's unpredictable. And I hope everybody's looking at the video. You've had fun with this conversation, I hope, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers. Thank you.
Bye there.
All right, cool.